Nothing we want to talk about? Things happen. Things happen. No.
Meeting will come to order. We are now holding our regular scheduled meeting held Tuesday, November 17th, 2009, 9 a.m. And at this time, I'd like to call on Reverend Don Rickard, Christ by the Sea United Methodist Church. Welcome, and thank you very much for being here. And the invocation will be followed by Commissioner Peter O'Brien.
Let us pray. God of infinite grace and mercy, come to us as we gather this day for seemingly secular purposes. Decisions to be made on behalf of our county that we assume have little to do with the sacred and holy. Yet here you are in our midst to meet and guide us through our business. For you care about every aspect of our lives and work, about all people and your property. With you, there is no separation of the sacred and the secular. This is your world, your county, your realm of interest and influence. Today, the chair and vice chair of the board will be elected. We pray that your loving and guiding hand will be upon them throughout their term. May they provide gracious leadership that will give confidence to our residents and to honor you. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend and Commissioner O'Brien. At this time, we have the election of the Board of County Commission Chairman and Vice Chairman, and I will pass the gavel over to Mr. Will Collins to run this portion of the meeting.
At this time, I'd like to accept nominations for the Chair of the County Commission.
Mr. Acting Chairman, I'd like to nominate Peter O'Brien.
Mr. Collins, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Flesher.
Okay, we have two nominations. Are there any others? In that case, I'll take a vote on the first nomination. All in favor of Peter O'Brien, say aye.
Aye.
That was 3?
3-2. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, the two hadn't
All in
happened yet.
favor of Commissioner Flesher?
Aye.
Aye.
2. By a 3-2 vote, Mr. O'Brien will be chair for the coming year, and I'll pass him the gavel for the nomination of the vice chair.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Now accept the nomination for the position of Vice Chair of Board of County Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Mr. Solari as Vice Chair.
Okay. We have a nomination for Mr. Solari. Are there any more nominations?
I'll nominate Commissioner Flesher.
Okay. We have a nomination for Commissioner Solari and Commissioner Flesher. Any further nominations? Hereby close the nominations. We'll proceed to vote on the first nomination. Those in favor of Commissioner Solari signify with aye.
Aye.
I have 1, 2, 3 votes. Those in favor of Commissioner Flesher signify with aye.
Aye.
Vote of 2. So by a vote of 3, Commissioner Solari is the Vice Chairman of the Board of County Commissioners.
Commissioner, would you like to take a brief recess and rearrange things, or it's your meeting? And congratulations. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and proceed. I would like to take a minute just to thank you, Commissioner Davis, for your leadership over the past year. The county faced some real challenges over the last 12 months, and I think you just showed exceptional leadership. Some of these issues were very emotional, a lot of passion, and you kept things on a professional level. You kept the speakers focused, and I can only hope I can come close to your level of leadership over the next year.
Well, thank you, Commissioner.
I do intend to follow the tradition that Commissioner Wheeler and Commissioner Davis have set. As far as an open meeting, the public will be given every opportunity to speak. We will not limit it. There will be no time limit, and as long as the speakers stay on point and do not have any personal attacks, we will let them speak until everybody has a fair chance to speak. So, with that, we will proceed.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd just like to say one word on what you just said about Mr. Davis, and that's ditto.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Yes.
I'm more than happy to give this position to Commissioner O'Brien and confident he'll do a fine job.
Yes.
And as well as in his stead, Commissioner Solari, should he be out one day or have a brother in the mining business and you need to run the meeting.
Okay, we will now proceed. Item 4 is additions, deletions to the agenda. I have a proclamation I would like to add under item 5C. And then Commissioner Davis, I believe you had a letter of support for the Cultural Council to be added to consent.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that'd be under item 8M. Is there any further additions or deletions to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
Okay, Commissioner Solari made a motion, Commissioner Davis second. Proceed to a vote. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Carries unanimously. That takes us to proclamations and presentations. Item 5A, a presentation of proclamation designating November 22nd through 28th, 2009 as Christian Heritage Week in Indian River County. And Commissioner Davis will make that presentation.
Yes, I will. And I believe we've got Dr. Craig McGarvey in the audience to accept. Welcome, Dr. McGarvey.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
This is a proclamation designating November 22nd through 28th, 2009 as Christian Heritage Week in Indian River County. Whereas during the season and the spirit of Thanksgiving, it is right and just to recognize the contributions and sacrifices of our founding fathers. And whereas the preamble of the Constitution of the State of Florida provides, we the people of the State of Florida, being grateful to Almighty God for our constitutional liberty, in order to secure its benefits, perfect our government, ensure domestic tranquility, maintain public order, and guarantee equal civil and political rights to all. And whereas the Constitution of the State of Florida guarantees the free exercise of religion. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the week of November 22nd through to 28th, 2009, be designated and set aside as Christian Heritage Week in Indian River County in recognition of the American Family Association's contribution to the quality of life in Indian River County, signed by all 5 county commissioners. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman O'Brien, Vice Chairman Solari. Congratulations. Wish you a good year. Commissioners, and Mr. Baird, Mr. Collins, it's a pleasure to be with you this morning, and thank you, Mr. Davis, for reading the proclamation. On behalf of the American Family Association of Indian River County, I want to thank you for continuing this tradition. And as you know, Thanksgiving Day coincides with Christian Heritage Week. And Governor Bradford of the Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1623, the 3rd year of the existence of that colony, declared a day of thanksgiving to God for the blessings that have been received for the establishment of the colony and the survival of the colony. And as we know, in Jamestown in 1607, and our country is beginning to develop and grow, the Plymouth colony in Massachusetts, and we see the birth of America. So we believe in the American Family Association that the continuation of the recognition of our Christian heritage and tradition in this country is very important. So we thank you on behalf again of our board and myself for taking the time to acknowledge our Christian heritage. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McGarvey. Brings us to item 5B, presentation of proclamation designating the month of November 2009 as National Adoption Awareness Month. And Commissioner Wheeler will be making the presentation.
Thank you. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Gary.
This is a proclamation designating the month of November 2009 as National Adoption Awareness Month. Whereas there are numerous children in our county waiting for adoptive families. Would she like to read it?
did say he. I haven't given him his first haircut yet.
And whereas nearly all these children have special needs because of the physical, mental, or emotional disabilities, because they must be placed with siblings, because they are children of color, or because they are school-age children. Whereas these children need extra patience and support to help them overcome previous hardships. And whereas all the children have the right to a forever family, and whereas families are able to and willing to adopt children who have special needs, and whereas it is important to stress that a disability, low income, or being single does not disqualify individuals from adopting. And whereas children waiting for adoptive parents and families who have adopted these children require and deserve community and agency support. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County that November of 2009 be designated as the National Adoption Awareness Month in Indian River County. In honor of this event, we encourage community agencies, religious organizations, businesses, and others to celebrate adoption, honor families that grow through adoption, further an awareness of the changes and issues in adoption, and focus attention on those children who live in the shadows of an uncertain future while they await the forever family, and adopted the 17th day of November 2009, signed by all 5 commissioners. Tim, welcome.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Wheeler, and all the other commissioners. Again, my name is Tim Zork, part of the Christian Family Builders, a nonprofit here located in Vero Beach, and we take the message of adoption and foster care around to the community and around the state. And on behalf of the children here in the Treasure Coast and around the state and around the world needing families, and by the way, this is Chandler. He's almost a year old. He's very animated.
I remember the last one you had here, roughly about 6 or 7.
Almost. So they have to get, their first time, and then they're much better behaved on their next visits. But I want to thank you for the proclamation. For more information on adoption, there we go. Very good. For more information on adoption and foster care and how we can assist families through that, we can be reached at ChristianFamilyBuilders.com or by calling 643-5700. And there's a great, tremendous need along the Treasure Coast and around the state, and actually 143 million children worldwide needing families.
Tim, thanks for all the work you do with us also, and other charities that you're working with.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good.
There you go.
He's not even running next year.
Stay in practice.
Where are you?
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Yes, he can.
Nice young man.
If he wants to, we'll make another one.
That moves us to item 5C, which was added to the agenda. This is a presentation, a certificate of appreciation to the Indian River County Recreation Department. I'll be presenting this, and Cliff, you've got half the team there, so why don't you bring them all up? This certificate of appreciation is hereby presented to the Indian River County Recreation Department. On October 3rd and 4th, 2009, for the 4th year in a row, the Indian River County Recreation Department was the host of the State of Florida Special Olympics State Aquatics Championship held at the North County Aquatic Center. This event was sponsored by the Indian River County Recreation Department, Sebastian River High School, the Treasure Coast Sports Commission, and Indian River County Special Olympics. In addition, Publix is a major year-round sponsor of many Special Olympic events. The Sebastian River High School Drumline also performed at the opening ceremonies. 321 Special Olympic athletes representing 30 counties in Florida competed during the 2-day event. They were joined by 67 coaches, 399 volunteers, and enthusiastic crowds cheering them on as they competed as true Olympic athletes. The event resulted in 424 hotel room nights with an estimated economic benefit to Indian River County of $207,034. The recreation staff worked long, hard hours to produce a well-coordinated, smoothly run event, ensuring that all the participants enjoyed their visit to Indian River County and all went home as Olympic champions. Therefore, this certificate of appreciation is presented to the entire staff of the Recreation Department for their hard work and dedication in hosting the 2009 State of Florida Special Olympics State Aquatics Championship, presented the 17th day of November 2009, signed by all 5 county commissioners. And, this is one of these events, it's almost addictive. Once you volunteer and see how these folks respond and what it means to them to be out there competing, you just have to go back next year. When I tell people in the community about this, they say, hey, let me know next year because I want to volunteer. And I think Cliff volunteers were up about 40 or 50 more than last year, and it just seems to keep growing. So, anyway, you guys, Cliff, you want to introduce everybody and say a word?
Thank you. Good evening, good morning, Commissioners. Thank you very much for the proclamation. And we have just some of our key staff, and some actually you don't see initially, that do a lot of work preparing for the event to make this as successful as it is. And it takes a tremendous amount of coordination and detailed work to have for this to happen. And I'd like to introduce several of those folks that really make this behind the scenes and then during the scenes, as well as part of the post-event activities. We have Jill Krebs from our office and Amy Glazer, both who work on the registrations and other types of detail, working directly with the coaches and fellow staff and logistically making things happen so the event runs smoothly. And then we have Scott and David, and of course Mike, who are directly involved in the operations. And one of our key staff who is not here today is Fauna, who is on her honeymoon, who could not be with here in person, but she's certainly here in spirit. And we really want to thank not just all of our staff here who year in and year out make this event happen, but the staff that can't be here, who's out in the field working today. And certainly the event doesn't happen at all without, honestly, y'all's support, a lot of funding, and Mr. Baird's support to allow us to make these kinds of events happen. So on behalf of it, we're just pleased to be able to make this event part of hopefully a long-time tradition in our community, to give back and make it happen for those athletes that have those special needs. What we would like to do, we have a 3-minute presentation to do a brief highlight of this year's event, and with y'all's permission, we'd like to show that right now.
Absolutely.
Come to me wild and wild.
Exactly. Just has like I said, the Sebastian River High School does a great job hosting the opening ceremonies and the lighting of the torch and all that, and the athletes marching in is great. And just you showed the drum line real quick, and Jim Sexton, our human resources, his daughter is in the drum line, and I think they had a blast with that. So it's a great community event. Everybody pitching in to do a really good show.
Yes, it is. And again, we want to thank everybody, not just for coming out, but for all those volunteers and everybody who really helped out to make it a successful event. And we look forward to next year working with the Special Olympics and bringing this event again to a successful conclusion as this year has been. And again, thanks for everyone's support.
Just if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, absolutely.
The economic benefit. I mean, everything that y'all do obviously is for a good cause, but there's certainly a side to this, and that's the economic benefits to the local residents as far as the hotels they use, the restaurants they eat at, and that we would be remiss if not giving you the kudos of really using an asset like the North County Aquatic Center to be an economic benefit to the community with events like this. It's easier for you not to do things like this, but because you go the extra mile, and we certainly do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, come on up. Good job, guys. You got it. Good job, guys. Great job. You got it. Yes, good job. Thank you. Right. Good job, bud. Thanks, Cliff. Good job. Thank you. Okay, that concludes proclamations and presentations. Next is item 6, approval of minutes of the September 22nd.
Second.
Commissioner Wheeler, second by Commissioner Flesher. Any discussion? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, carries unanimously. Regular meeting of October 6, 2009.
Move approval.
Commissioner Wheeler and Commissioner Flesher, second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes unanimously. Thank you. No informational items. That takes us to number 8, consent agenda.
Move approval.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Davis.
I'd like to pull 8H, please.
8H.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have 8H pulled, and I wanted to,
It's different, isn't it?
there's a lot more paperwork here. No, actually, I think we're all agreement on H there, so we're good. Okay, any other changes to the consent agenda? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Approval. Second.
Commissioner Flesher, seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, carries unanimously. Go ahead, Commissioner Davis, item H.
Commissioner, I believe we have some individuals perhaps are here that would like to speak on this. I've received some correspondence and some concerns. And in this instance, what we have is a local firm that missed out on this. And that if they would like to come up and say a few words at your pleasure. But my biggest concern about this is having this as a 4-year or what may be a 4-year window. And I'm not sure exactly what the best way to go here is, but I'd clearly like to just see it worst case scenario as far as a 1-year contract.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Julie Keller with KSM Engineering, and I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning about this item. I saw on there that 4 years ago, or actually 1 year ago, the continuing contract for geotechnical services in the county was put up for bid, and that's fine, and we missed the opportunity to do that, to bid on that. We missed that ad in the paper, but the contract renews every year for 4 years, and that seems like a really long time, and especially since we are the only local geotech. We are the only geotech that is in Indian River County, and we employ all Indian River County residents. So we just want the chance to be competitive and get on the contract to see if we can provide services for the county.
Commissioner, staff, we've discussed this. Chris Moore and I discussed this yesterday. What we could do is do a 90-day extension on these and go out to bid and then try and get, it says local people have an opportunity. We'll do a 90-day extension, says we have geotech on contract until we're able to go through the Competitive Negotiation Act, which is required under law, that's an alternative, and that's, Chris and I have discussed that, and that would give local people, since they're not a local vendor here or a local engineering firm, that would be under the continuing contract.
I would like to do that if we could. I mean,
Is that a motion?
that is a motion, yes.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Commissioner Davis, seconded by Commissioner Fleischer, to grant a 90-day extension of the geotechnical services agreement and simultaneously put it out to rebid. Okay, any further discussion?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Mr. Collins?
These are engineering-type services. They're not typically put out to bid. I think the way
We said
it's done
competitive.
is we set out a request for qualifications, and if there are qualifying firms that can provide the services, the county enters into agreements with them, and
We submit an RFQ.
Under the Competitive Negotiation Act,
Right.
Engineering Competitive Negotiation Act.
Right, but I think the term was bid that gives,
there's no bidding in
Right.
CCNA.
Okay.
But it would open the door for additional qualified firms to submit applications, and if our staff determines that they're qualified, they could enter into a similar agreement, I would think.
okay.
And I think that was the intent of your motion, is to open up for requests for qualifications, I guess. So.
Right.
Chris?
Chris Moore, Public Works Director. Attorney Collins is correct. We would be going out for an RFQ in this case, but it operates under the same timetable, and we would certainly welcome local firms to submit their qualifications on this.
That was my intent.
Okay.
That was my understanding of your motion, too, and I think Mr. Baird pointed that out also when he spoke.
Okay.
So we have a motion to grant a 90-day extension of the current agreement and open up for requests for qualifications. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Constitutional officers, we have nothing there. That takes us on to public items. 10A1, the public hearing. State Road 60 Vero LLC, request to rezone 19.98 acres from RM6 to RM8. This is pages 142 to 165, and is quasi-judicial. With that, do we need to swear anybody in, please? Anyone who is going to be providing testimony or wishes to speak on this, would you please stand and be sworn in by the clerk?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Thank you. Bob, you going to start this off?
Yes, I am. Good morning. I'm Bob Keating. I'm County Community Development Director, and this is an applicant-initiated request to change the zoning on a piece of property, and the request is to change the zoning from RM6, which is residential multifamily up to 6 units per acre, to RM8, which is residential multifamily up to 8 units per acre. Back in October, the Planning and Zoning Commission considered this proposed rezoning, and they voted unanimously to recommend that you approve the rezoning. This slide shows the subject property. The subject property is on the south side of State Road 60, and it's a little bit west of 58th Avenue. You can see here it and the property to the west and the properties to the south are currently zoned RM6. The properties to the east and the properties to the north are zoned CG, which is general commercial. This is an aerial of the property. It shows that the subject property has been cleared. There is some native vegetation along a portion of the west boundary line, and actually that vegetation is within a conservation easement that is to the benefit of the county. You can also see all the development around the subject property. The 60 Oaks development is to the west. The Century Town Center is to the east, and the Indian River Mall and associated commercial development is to the north. In terms of future land use designations, the subject property and the properties to the west and the south are designated as M1 on the comp plan. M1 is a designation that allows residential development up to 8 units per acre, and that's what the applicant is asking for. He's asking for a zoning designation that corresponds to the land use designation. The property to the east is designated commercial industrial on the comp plan, and the property to the north is designated regional commercial. And as I said, that's part of the entire mall property and the ancillary development that goes with that. I do want to point out at this time that this property has been the subject of a lot of discussions between staff and applicants over the years. Almost always, property owners or applicants have wanted to change the property to commercial, and staff has consistently said that we don't need any more commercial at this busy area near the intersection of State Road 60 and 58th Avenue. And that's one of the principal reasons why we're supporting this proposed rezoning to RM8. We did look at the criteria that we look at with all rezonings. We looked at concurrency, comp plan consistency, environmental impact, and compatibility. In this case, there is sufficient capacity in all concurrency facilities to accommodate the proposed rezoning and still maintain the service levels that we have in our comp plan, so there's no problem with concurrency. In terms of comp plan consistency, this proposed rezoning is consistent with the comp plan. There are various policies in the comp plan that relate to compact development and really higher densities along State Road 60. And in fact, this rezoning would be consistent with really an unwritten policy that the board has consistently adopted, which is usually that the higher density zoning districts that are allowed within a comp plan designation are usually along a major arterial, and as you get further away from that, then the lower density zoning districts are more appropriate. In this case, with the M1 land use designation allowing up to 8 units per acre, which corresponds to the RM8 zoning district, that is consistent with this policy being, or this property being zoned RM8, and the density gradually decreasing as you get further away from the principal arterial. But we did look at all policies in the comp plan, and this rezoning is consistent with all the policies. As I said, this property has been cleared, it's been impacted before, so we don't anticipate any environmental impacts from the rezoning. In terms of compatibility, this is really a good transition. The RM8 transitions from the commercial to the north and to the east as you go to the west to 60 Oaks. 60 Oaks is RM6, and it's built out right at 6 units per acre. In fact, 60 Oaks was our first planned development project that we had in the county after the county adopted a PD ordinance. This also really makes a lot of sense to put a residential project here. As you can see when you look at the aerial, there are a lot of opportunities for someone to shop, maybe be employed, and to go to other attractions without even getting in his car or with a very short car trip. And those are some of the characteristics that are consistent with objectives in the county's comprehensive plan. So staff feels that this would be compatible with the surrounding property. So the conclusion is that the proposed rezoning will be compatible with surrounding uses. It is consistent with the comp plan. It meets the concurrency test, and there won't be any adverse environmental impacts. So both staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend that you approve the proposed rezoning.
Thank you. Bob, is there any comments for staff at this time? Commissioner Davis?
Just real quick, Bob, in the mixed-use zoning that we're talking about coming forward with, this seems like it'd be an ideal prospect to be able to have some mixed use with some commercial and down low with perhaps a T&D of some kind even, and being adjacent to the community college, or state college. Is that something that they're, with this zoning, they'll be able to do whenever they come in for their site plan?
Yes, yes. As part of going through and drafting the EAR-based amendments, we are looking at a mixed-use initiative that we brought up and you approved during the evaluation and appraisal report process. And we've been working on that, and we'll probably bring that to you sometime after the first of the year.
And I guess another reason for asking about that would provide some, in the event they came forward with a plan like that, it would provide for some interconnectivity and perhaps take some strain off the intersection of 58 and 60.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions of staff at this time? If not, I'll close this and open the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to comment on this rezoning request? Go ahead, Carolyn, come on up, give your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, hi, my name is Carolyn Coram. This is they say it's an urban area. You know, they want to rezone it. They want to build an extra 50 homes, 159 homes for 20 acres. Right now, there's 2,500 homes on the market, to where I know all the clues about the economy. The residential development is killing our economy here. The residential development is really killing the economy, to where if it was industrial or commercial, it would help the economy. Just so you all know, because there's so many houses on the market where people can't even sell their houses, to where why are these developers coming here and they're hurting us? They're hurting all our taxes. Plus, just for somebody like this, I think you should increase their impact fees. But then again, I don't even think you should vote for this. They said, I did my research 15 years ago. I learned about all this, to where, as you know, what happened the last 6 years, our economy. You see, I remember years ago, county commissioners were very concerned about certain developments, you know, to where there's so many developments now, to really, that is really killing the economy in Indian River County, to where I think that, you know, even though this is just voted 6 units per acre, they want to go up to 8 units per acre. For that will hurt the economy. Just so you know all about my knowledge about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Coram. Is there anyone further from the public? Name and address for the record, please.
Joseph Paladin, President of Black Swan Consulting. Congratulations, Commissioner O'Brien and Commissioner Solari. I support staff's recommendation on this. I think this is right on State Road 60. It's a great place to try and get as much density on a piece of property in the middle of a lot of commercial development as possible. In order to preserve our agricultural land and protect our urban service line, I think one of the things we need to start looking at is places that we can build out inside the urban service line to a maximum capacity that's permitted. And without giving up our buffers and our setbacks and the things that make this county attractive, I think that we can go forward with this and that wouldn't harm that. So I would support this and support staff, and I think you all ought to go forward and vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paladin. Bruce?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations.
Thank you.
My name is Bruce Barquette. I'm representing the applicant. Just wanted to respond to Ms. Coram. This is not a new developer. This owner has owned this property for 10 years that I know of, and I'm one of the ones that have been pushing staff to try to make it commercial. So if Mrs. Coram was telling us that this should be commercial, I would support that. But in lieu of that, what Mr. Davis said was very astute. This is the precursor for making use of that mixed-use zoning district. They've been putting some pen to paper to try to make that work, and this is a precursor to that.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Barquette.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Wheeler?
Wait, I'll see if anybody else wants to speak.
Okay. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and let the record show the ample opportunity was allowed all to speak. Commissioner Wheeler.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to make a motion to approve this increase in density. And the reason for it is, and probably nobody on the commission has been more anti-increased density than I have over the last several years. But this is an excellent location. We got the Indian River State College there. I would assume that probably it's going to end up being multifamily. Very likely, I would think, good chance it would be rental units for college students and people that are going to be going to the state college. And it is a good buffer between the existing residential and the commercial. And I think it's a good location for people that don't have cars or can't afford a car. They can walk to and from the commercial areas, the malls, so on and so forth. So I think it's probably one of the best places in the county for this type of density.
Okay, thank you.
And so I'll make a motion.
Second your motion, and basically because I agree with everything you said there.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Wheeler and a second from Commissioner Solari. Any discussion? Commissioner Davis?
No, I'll just hold them back, but good job, Commissioner Wheeler.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Public items 10A2, an ordinance requiring registered sex offenders to notify the operators of temporary emergency shelters. On your backup pages 166 to 170, this is legislative. And Sheriff, you're going to...
Good morning, Commissioner. Congratulations. Thank you for the
Thank
promotion.
you.
James Harpring, Indian River County Sheriff's Office. This issue has come up a number of times over the years, and this amendment to an existing ordinance will require those required by state law to register as sexual offenders or sexual predators to identify themselves as such, and if appropriate or available, to allow them to be segregated, though we don't anticipate that, in a particular emergency shelter. As you know, most of the shelters that are designated as emergency shelters are schools, and sexual offenders and sexual predators are prohibited from residing within a 2,500-foot radius by county ordinance. As such, for a number of years, this has been something that we've been trying to work out, but the appropriate language in the ordinance was difficult to come by because of essentially competing interests and various interests that were involved. So this particular ordinance, as noted, would simply require a person seeking shelter in a facility designated as an emergency shelter under a state of emergency to identify themselves to the people that are running the shelter as someone who is required to register under state law as a sexual offender or sexual predator.
Any questions of Jim?
No, just a comment when...
Okay.
I'll wait until the appropriate time.
Okay. Jim, just one question. Will the Sheriff's Office provide training to the employees that are manning the shelter? If somebody comes in and says, yes, I am one, will there be a protocol for them to follow, and how will that proceed after that notification?
Well, the Sheriff's Office has actually had a long-standing policy to provide a law enforcement officer at each particular shelter.
Okay.
So we will be there on site at all of these shelters, as we have historically, in order to maintain law and order. And the reality of it is it's going to be virtually impossible to segregate anyone because of the resource strain that there is. So when the person does come, it's a matter of being able to identify that person, have their name on a list, and have all the parties be aware of the fact that there is someone who's otherwise required to register.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Mr. Wheeler.
You know, one of the things that bothers me about this, and it's first, the general public doesn't understand the difference between a predator and an offender. And sometimes predators become offenders because of plea bargaining. And a predator is much more serious, a violator, than an offender in most cases. I mean, an offender could be someone, some 18-year-old that has sex with a 16-year-old girlfriend. That's a sexual offender. And it concerns me that, and I probably, it's a small minority, and I'm going to support this, but I wish the legislature and I wish people would start distinguishing between offenders and predators. In my opinion, you know, offenders, depending on the level of their, you know, being an offender, which is a lesser act than a predator, you know, should be treated differently. And in my opinion, you know, if I were king, predators would be executed, period. They wouldn't be out on the streets, and they wouldn't be out of the prison system. And what happens is this throws both groups in together and gives people a lot of anxiety because they have a sexual offender living in their neighborhood when the sexual offender may have been the example that I related to earlier, something of that nature. But I wish somehow they'd come up and distinguish between the two. And like I said, I will support this because I think it's important. You can't really have one without the other the way it is right now, but I would like to see the legislature address this a little more clearly.
And the state legislature has distinguished it as a result of what particular offense you've been convicted for, whether there was force, violence, and of course the relative age of the victim and the offender. And as it stands this morning, we have 153 registered sexual offenders or predators in Indian River County. Of that number, 153 are sexual offenders. 5 are sexual predators. We have 1 juvenile sexual offender, though that individual has reached the age of majority. However, their offense was committed at the time that they were juvenile. We have 2 absconders. So we understand that. I think the distinction is one that is often lost in the furor over the nature of the offense. However, I think that in practice, it may simply be that a lot of people are urged by emergency management officials that if you can stay home, stay home. And what we're hoping is it won't become an issue, and it actually won't become a matter of law and order issue if people are aware that there is a sexual offender or sexual predator in a particular shelter, and and become upset at that matter. But if nothing else, it gives us as law enforcement a tool to be able to identify that person and to be aware of it, where historically we have not been aware of that, or there's been no legislative mandate that requires them to identify themselves. And of course, if they don't, then that's going to be a violation of ordinance and a criminal violation.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Fleischer?
So, in that light, during the times of needs, especially during a hurricane event, the sheriff will be able to provide temporary housing or shelter for the individual if they fail to comply. They'll be lodged at
the shelters themselves. There's a combination. There's a group of people that are involved. You have the school board who provides the schools. We don't provide an alternate location for them to reside at, because number one, we don't know whether or not any particular number will actually be leaving their residence, and it would be virtually impossible to say in advance that this number of offenders or predators have to go to this particular shelter. It would be an absolute waste of resources to identify a shelter as a shelter to be used exclusively for sexual offenders or sexual predators when we don't know if any would actually be vacating their residence. Since in the recent years there's been a great stressing of the fact that if you can remain in your residence, it's better to stay at home than it is to go to a particular shelter.
I was referring to the tremendous awareness campaign that the sheriff's office has provided with the endless video loops, and that most residents are aware when they have a predator or offender on their block or in their area. And I'm referring back to the time when we were all housing our residents during the hurricanes. That was a general discussion. And people do identify the individuals that are listed on the website and on the endless loops, and the offenders and predators. And this tool now, should it pass, and I plan to support it as well, will give the sheriff the necessary tool to be able to relocate the individuals into perhaps the jail if they fail to comply.
Well, if they fail to identify themselves, then they would be subject to a criminal violation based on the ordinance.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions at this time? If not, I'll close this and open up the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Let the record show ample opportunity was provided all to speak. Gentlemen?
Move to approve.
I have a motion from Commissioner Fleischer, second by Commissioner Davis. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to 10B, public discussion items. A request to speak from Gordon Michael regarding dedication of a portion of State Road 60 to Corporal Richard Raskowski. Mr. Michael.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Gordon Michael, 2655 69th Street, and the reason I come to you today is I would like to talk to you all about maybe rededicating State Road 60 from I-95 east to 43rd Avenue in the name of Corporal Richard Raskowski. He was a deputy in the 1986 and was also the only law enforcement officer that's been killed in the line of duty here in this county. The early morning hours of September 23rd, he answered a 911 call hang up in front of the suspect that he knew that was a convicted felon, and a firearm was spotted. There was a confrontation conducted, and he was shot 3 times and later died in his sergeant's arm on the way to the hospital. I know it's a state road, but I talked to Representative Rob Popple, and he suggested coming to you all first and start on a local level and work our way up. As you will see, there's a couple of support letters, one from Mr. Colton. I apologize for the address, but I didn't know you all were voting on changing chairman and vice chairmen today, so you'll have to overlook that or take it up with Mr. Colton. Also, one from the former sheriff, Laura Raymond, who worked with him and in support of it also.
Okay, anybody have a comment? Commissioner Wheeler?
Yeah, I would, I supported this when it came in front of us before in the past, and I think if anybody's deserving of recognition, Richard certainly was. I knew him well. He not only was a good deputy, he was a good person, and probably that's ultimately what led to his demise, is being a people person and someone that wants to help someone. And I remember the night clearly when it happened, and I would support whatever we need to do to bring this back, a resolution or whatever, to memorialize that section of Route 60 on behalf of Richard Wiskowski. I know the helicopters and numbers are RR, right, which we did in remembrance of Richard, and so I would support that.
Okay, Commissioner Davis.
In fact, I don't know whether we need a motion, but I'm in agreement with this. I just don't know exactly the direction we should go.
I think what I'd like to see us do is just vote on instructing staff to bring back a resolution to our state legislatures, or encourage them to put this into the state legislative session and bring that back to us for a final vote. That way we'll be taking action with some backup.
Move to direct staff.
Second.
Okay.
Also, it would be, at that intersection and with 60 being under construction, it'd be timely if we could get this done through the legislature this session. That's one of the reasons I brought it to you, commissioners, in hopes that with the development being, or repaving and construction of that area, that we could get a fresh start, something similar to dedicate it to him.
Yeah.
And also to let you know, Ralph Popple, Representative Popple, is in support of this, but he felt that we needed to start on a local level, make you all aware of it, and then with your support, he would take it to the legislature.
Yeah. I think we have we do have a meeting December 1st when this will come back to us. We can vote on it, and then we'll be able to present it to our legislative delegation on December 4th. I think their meeting, so that would tie in. Commissioner Solari.
That's what I was going to suggest.
Okay.
Direct staff to bring it back to us on the 1st of December.
Okay. Will, are you good with everything there? All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner Davis, seconded by Commissioner Flesher, to have staff draft up a resolution in support of renaming a portion of State Road 60 to honor Corporal Richard Roskowski. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Wells, I see you in the audience, but your name was not on the agenda. Did you want to speak today, or are you just here to listen? Okay, thank you very much. That moves us on to 10C1, public notices. Mr. Collins, would you do the honor of reading the public notices, please?
Yes, sir. We have scheduled public hearing for December 1st, 2009, Shell Lane East, a portion of Summer Place, a petition sewer service, the county project to put in sewer on Shell Lane East. And also on December 1st, 2009, there will be a public hearing to consider a proposed ordinance to create a new Gifford Community Center municipal service taxing unit.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Collins.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Solari?
On the second item, notice of the proposed ordinance to create a new Gifford Community Center, have we notified all the groups in Gifford that would be interested in this? Have we sent letters out to them? The GYIC, PACE, NAACP?
No, the only group that we've been in coordination with on this is the Progressive Civic League of Gifford. We certainly could send copies, but I don't have addresses for those groups.
I think the staff has addresses to the group. I mean, this is a tax on the community, and I'd feel a lot more comfortable if we delayed this another week and sent out letters informing them to try to get the word out to as many people as possible.
I agree with that, and it would be right in line with what we talked about whenever we had the situation come up with the Industrial General last week, as far as I just think that would be appropriate.
Absolutely.
Wasn't this proposed by the Civic League?
Yes, this was proposed by the Gifford Progressive League.
Something they've been working on with the county to bring forward
for about 3 years.
They're the only group that's been notified, evidently, and as good as they are, it doesn't get noticed out to the community to the level that I'd certainly like to see it.
Well, if you give me the names and addresses of those groups, I can send them out a copy of the ordinance.
Well, I'll let you get the addresses from staff, but I'd include it, I'd also talk with Bob Keating and ask for all the groups he has, but the groups would include the Gifford Youth Activity Center, the PACE Group, the NAACP, the Pastors Association, the Front Porch Association, and any other groups like that, which could just simply get the word out to the residents of Gifford.
Commissioners, I think I'm sorry. I'm not used to this yet.
Okay, you want to just hold this for a little bit longer, Leslie?
Sorry.
Okay.
I think what Commissioner Solari is bringing up is extremely important. This is something good. So I don't think it's going to be an issue, but I think if we don't lay the groundwork now, next time something does come up, we won't have the system in place to be able to do what we were to do last week.
Why don't we send I'll have Bob get a list and we'll email around in case we missed anyone that may have inquired. I know that recently we've had inquiries on this from industrial people who don't think they should be paying, and so that's another side of this coin. So we may want to send it. We'll send it also to the chamber, because we've had some commercial properties say, hey, you know, as far as we do not have anything, so that's another issue that's popped up. So we'll do a list, and we'll try and have it out by tomorrow or so. And if you feel there's something we need to add, because we're not perfect, there might be someone's talked to y'all, we don't know who it is, and we'll add it to the list, and you know, we'll have a good file.
But at this point, the public hearing has been advertised for December 1st. We should probably open that hearing, and if you want to continue it to a later date, if we haven't made those communications before then, we could do that then.
Even if we made the communications before then, I'd still like to delay it at least a week, if not two, because we can get the communication to, say, the president of the organization, but that doesn't leave him much time, especially over a Thanksgiving weekend, which is between now and then, to actually get the notice out. I mean, I think we have to do more than just a pro forma notice. I think we've got to set in place a system which actually gives people the ability to give notice to the different citizens. So I think, and especially as I understand how a lot of it works in Gifford, it goes down in some steps. I mean, we may notify in the next 3 or 4 days the Pastors Association, but they meet on a certain day a month. So, you know, basically I think we should probably actually give a month, because the PACE meets once a month, the Gifford Youth Activity Center meets once a month, the NAACP meets once a month, I think the Pastors Association meets once a month, and these are generally all on different Mondays.
We cannot give it a month and still meet the requirements to have the information to the property appraiser and tax collector before the end of the year.
So how long can we give it?
That's the concern.
I would say probably the 15th of December is as late as you could delay it.
Okay, then I'd say do we delay it to the 15th of December, but going forward, that we make sure that we have more time from the time we give notice to all these groups, at least a month, so they can go through the cycle that is actually in place in Gifford, so that they actually have a chance to get the notice out.
Well, just from a logistics point of view, have we actually sent out ads in the paper and paid for them with the December 1st date?
Yeah, the ad ran yesterday.
Okay. Are we better off, as you suggested, just go ahead and...
Well, it would be cheaper for us to open the public hearing December 1st, for these reasons, continue it to the 15th for a final decision.
And I'm fine with that.
Are you okay with that, Commissioner? Sorry. Okay. All right.
And staff will be aggressive. What we'll do, we'll get a little matrix going. We'll see if we can't contact them by phone, and we'll mail something out so as everyone's aware. We'll try to be
Maybe if they do have a meeting, as Commissioner Solari said, maybe staff could go to that meeting and give them a little update on it, and that way they'll get the word ahead of time as well. Is that...
Yes.
Everybody good with that? Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, that moves us to department matters. 12I, Public Works Staff Update, Sector 3 Beach Renourishment Project. Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you, Jonathan Gorham, Coastal Resource Manager, with our weekly update on the progress for the Sector 3 beach renourishment permitting. In this last week, we had a conference call with the DEP staff who's been reviewing our submitted permit modification. We had that meeting on November 10th. Based on some feedback from department staff, we've agreed to make some modifications to some segments of the permit modification, specifically the sediment quality assurance and quality control plan. We're going to be incorporating a more frequent sampling of the material at the sand sources before it's loaded on the trucks, and tightening the specifications on the carbonate content of the material and the sand color as well. We've also agreed to replace material from the Stewart Mine in St. Lucie County in the original modification plan with material from the other two sources, Ranch Road Lake and Fisher and Sons. We expect to have all those modifications submitted up to Tallahassee by tomorrow afternoon. We've also had a request from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that the county commit in writing to not requesting any extension of time into sea turtle nesting season to complete project construction. We did request and were granted such an extension a couple of years ago, 2007, for the Sector 7 project. We've had some discussion, and the staff would feel comfortable issuing such a letter if it included the proviso that this commitment would apply only if our state and federal permits are received before January 15th to avoid painting ourselves into a corner on scheduling. I like that. And following the direction from the board last week to pursue a phased approach to permitting the project, building a phase 1 project in the southern portion of Sector 3, evaluating that material's performance with respect to sea turtle nesting, and then building phase 2 in the subsequent year. The county staff have prepared a draft test plan, we're calling it, for the evaluation of this upland sand material in phase 1 for its sea turtle nesting suitability prior to moving ahead with phase 2. We're getting some outside expert feedback on that plan today, and we plan to submit that to the department and to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service also tomorrow afternoon. On a parallel path for the last couple of months, we've been moving towards establishing this erosion control line that, while not a part of the permitting process, is a prerequisite to construction. And we have advertised or scheduled to advertise as required by statute in the local newspaper for 3 weeks, over the next 3 weeks, a public notice of this erosion control line establishment and hearing. Also, as required in the statute, we've sent certified letters to all the riparian property owners, everyone owning property within 1,000 feet of the limits of the Sector 3 project, which totaled up to some 950 letters. But we did get all those out yesterday afternoon. And following the required periods of public notice and these letters, we have scheduled the workshop and public hearing for the establishment of the erosion control line, which will be on December 14th at the Disney Vero Beach Resort. DEP, Bureau of State Land staff, will be serving as a hearing officer for that. And that schedule does keep us on track to get this erosion control line established and recorded prior to when we expect to have all our permits.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
No, I like the caveat, though. If they don't want us to ask for an extension, then give us a permit in a timely fashion.
Yeah, we were a little worried about that, getting backed into a corner, and so Jonathan will do that. Mr. Sorry?
Jonathan, how many people did you have help you with the 950 letters?
We had virtually all of the Public Works staff in the big conference room stuffing envelopes for a day and a half.
I just want to point that out, because people talk about notice, and if we slip up a little bit, we slip up. But we've made great efforts to give notice to people, and it's not easy to get out 950 letters in a timely manner. So I think the staff needs to be applauded for that, and we just need to note that this county is trying to give as much notice to the proper people as possible. So thank you.
Right, and we had thought that we could just send a letter to the homeowner management association, but it turns out you have to send a letter to every individual unit owner, and some of those that added to it. Two quick things. I just want to also on the sand guys, the miners. This project started, a third was the concept, and then it kind of went 70%, 15-15, and now it's about 90-10. And the Stewart mine kind of got phased out. I just want to, for the record, mention that Nick Stewart was very professional about this. All the guys have been committed to, it's kind of, we don't care really who gets the sand. We just want to make sure this gets done and save the taxpayers some money. So Nick was very professional and took it in good grace, and we appreciate all the work those guys are doing to help make this project go forward. And then just lastly, Jonathan, I think either Thursday or Friday, the Fish and Wildlife guys are going with staff to do kind of a field visit on some of the beaches. Is that still on?
Yeah, that's correct. We haven't nailed down the time yet, but either Thursday afternoon or Friday we'll take a sort of a field trip out there to look at a number of the different sites.
Okay, great. Any further questions from the commission? Anyone from the public wish to comment on this, Bill? You good? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. Next is item 12J, utilities. This is the electric resolution and scope of authority of Utility Advisory Committee. And Eric?
For the record, Eric Olson, Director of Utilities. The Utility Advisory Committee was created to discuss and present recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners regarding relevant items that may be affecting historically water, sewer, landfill issues and this sort of thing. Recently, with the Vero Beach Electric franchise agreement that's going to be coming up for closure in 2017, amongst other issues that affect Indian River County citizens, specifically not within the city of Vero Beach, it has been requested and suggested that we have the Board of County Commissioners direct the Utility Advisory Committee to discuss and make recommendations back to the Board of County Commissioners by the Utility Advisory Committee for the City of Vero Beach electric issue. Dr. Faraday is prepared to make a presentation to this effect. Currently, right now, that the ability for the Utility Advisory Committee to discuss this and make recommendations requires a directive from the Board of County Commissioners. We discussed this with the county attorney, and that's his recommendation that we bring this to the board and just simply have the board direct the Utility Advisory Committee to discuss this as a pointed matter. We return back to the commission for recommendations and or suggestions at that point.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Commissioner Davis.
Mr. Olson, just to I guess ask a question. Are we being a little too specific in this? And let's move forward 30 years from now.
Yeah.
There's no reason why we should have to come back and address this ordinance to talk about FP&L. Should it be something that needs to be discussed? I mean, right now we're given direction to look into City of Vero Beach's utilities for electric. Is there a way of accomplishing that, which I'm good with, but I don't want to be so short-sighted to think that we're not creating policy for 30 years down the road.
Well, I think you raise a good point. I mean, there's probably a lot of issues that are relevant to this particular topic, I mean, many of which we probably haven't covered today, and we probably can't even envision as far as that sort of thing goes. I think we can broaden the ordinance. We're not here today with the ability to kind of give you the specific, relative to the ordinance itself, but I would agree with you. What we can do is we can go back, we can take a look at the ordinance and kind of broaden its perspective and kind of take a look at it from a more generalized standpoint.
We're not dealing with an ordinance. What we have is a resolution creating the Utility Advisory Committee that gives them a scope of what their powers and duties are, and it simply reads, look at water, sewer, reclaimed water, and other matters directed by the board. But absent some direction by the board, they're not charged to go into this area, and that's really what we're here to do, is get the commission directive. Do they want this committee to look at the electric issue, which is outside the scope of their constituted duties?
So you just want to make it any electric utility.
Yeah, just electric, yes. And if I'm not mistaken, do they advise us on solid waste?
They do.
Okay, and I'm assuming that's because it's in there. And if not,
I don't think it is.
it should be.
We have historically, let me just say this, whether it is or it isn't, we have historically been bringing discussions back to the board for that effect.
I mean, if they are, I think that would be appropriate, and while we're doing this, not to water down anything that's in front of us. I think we ought to move forward with it. But I know, for example, the Utility Advisory Committee, I think before we were floating the idea of mandatory pickup. And that went to the Utility Advisory Committee for their opinion, and they came back with their opinion. And if it's not a part of the ordinance or resolution.
And also the privatization when we looked at the transfer stations.
One
One thing I would like in these resolutions is that they don't get into daily business, because sometimes that happens. Where that's got to be in every resolution, that, it's policy.
Okay. Commissioner Solari?
I just, following Commissioner Davis, just add the words after sewer and water, solid waste, and electric.
In
the
solid waste?
resolution.
Okay.
Will, with that,
Yeah, we can restructure that.
and that'll accomplish what we need?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so that a motion by Commissioner Solari?
I'll let Mr. Davis make the motion, I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. It's nice to make a motion.
Under discussion, just a question.
Yes,
Well,
Commissioner Wheeler.
I think it's already covered in our resolution. If it just spells out what they look at, or anything we tell them to look at. So if we advise them to look at something else, we're following our resolution as it is. Do we need a new resolution?
Well, I think this advises them to do it without us specifically, when the case comes up, advising them. It just gives it it puts it under their scope of authority.
Commissioner Wheeler's right. You can just direct them to do it without revising the resolution. What I'm hearing is you'd rather have it in the resolution, so going forward, there's no question.
Well, and it's a weak point, I guess, but probably not. But I mean, it's already there. The other thing is let's one of the difference between FP&L, for instance, and the City of Vero Beach. In both cases, we have absolutely no authority over either of them as it stands now. And if FP&L takes it over, at least we have some representation with the Public Utilities Commission. So the commission to ever get into who's going to provide electric for the county or whatever, I don't think is likely to ever occur.
I think this came up with Dr. Faraday because we actually have an electric franchise with the city.
Yeah, I realize that.
So, I think that's what generated this, and he just wants to have it addressed so they can probably discuss it without any.
Yeah, I have no objections. I just think we're
Not only that, but with FP&L, all of their personal property, all their lines and their poles, we get ad valorem taxes on them every year.
That's right.
Which is sizable.
right.
Okay.
And I noticed, as long as we're on this subject, well, never mind. The city had an interesting meeting yesterday that, there was some misinformation given by some of the public.
All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner Davis, seconded by Commissioner Solari, to add the words electric and solid waste to our utility authority. Is anyone from the public wishes to comment on this? Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Carries unanimously. Thank you. Takes us to item 12J2, request for qualifications for a consultant on the consolidation of utilities. Eric?
Approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Commissioner Fleischer. Just one point, there was an updated version of this distributed, I believe, yesterday. Did all the commissioners get a copy of it? Okay. I just have two quick comments. Eric, in the qualifications, could we put in there somewhere some type of timeline for this study? The duration should not exceed X months, just so these guys know we want something in a couple, 3 months, and not to take a year.
We will, again, for the record, Eric Olson, Director of Utilities. Part of the format on this thing, we're moving very quickly on the process, just so everybody's aware. Final proposals have to be received by from us, from the consultants by December 31st. That's a very quick timeline. Our position in discussions within the committee is that we want to finalize some sort of a report by spring. So we're not giving a lot of time for this thing to kind of sit around and gather dust. So internally, we've set a time element that would be somewhat in the spring time period to get some sort of a recommendation back to the board like that.
Okay.
So,
And then, Will, a question for you, since this is a request for qualifications. Okay.
yes,
then
it's CCNA.
It's not a true bid then?
No, it's a CCNA-driven process.
And once we get finished with the CCNA, that's where we put the timeframes in.
Okay. All right.
Exactly.
Commissioner Solari.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to thank Mr. Olson, Mike Hutchins, and Jason Brown, who had, in fairly short order, a series of meetings with the cities of Vero Beach and Indian River Shores. And I think this is the first time I really enjoyed and had a good time reading the RFQ. So I applaud them and thank them very much for moving quickly on this item.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Carries unanimously. Thank you. Takes us to 13 county attorney matters. A, necessity of take resolution for parcel of property located at 6816 49th Street. Linda Britcher, parcel 142. And Will, are you going to be taking this? Thank you.
For your consideration is a resolution of necessity for taking the Britcher property, 6816 49th Street. It's part of the 66th Avenue project north of Route 60, which also involves side streets needed to accommodate increased bridge elevations and turn lanes for the bridges over the canal. Linda Britcher owns a 5-acre parcel. It's her homestead. It's on the west side of 66th Avenue, rectangular with 329 feet of frontage on 49th Street, and it's 662 feet deep, zoned A1. Contains a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,160 square foot concrete block house that was built in 1976. The county needs a 30-foot by 329-foot strip, or 0.227 acres. There are no structures within the area of the take. Notice of owner was given, and based on similar appraised side street values, a conditional offer of $11,747.25 has been made. We would like this resolution of necessity approved to give us the authority to move forward using eminent domain, but we'll continue to negotiate a contract with her attorney in the meantime. So what we're looking for today is your approval of this resolution of necessity authorizing staff to proceed with acquisition through eminent domain should the negotiations fail.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, move staff recommendation to approve the resolution.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Davis and a second from Commissioner Wheeler. Is there any further discussion? Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Thank you. That takes us to Commissioner items. Commissioner Bob Solari, Economic Development and Strategic Goals Summit 2.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Last year, earlier this year, February 5th, we had a Economic Development Summit up in Sebastian, which I thought went very well. And however, since then, while the county has done a number of specific things which I think have very much improved the economic environment in Indian River County, unemployment has gone up. So while we may have turned the ship, we really haven't arrived at our destination. So I'm proposing that see if the Commission wants to have another Economic Development Summit roughly the same time in February of 2010, with some basic goals being to review the actions that the Board of County Commissioners have taken in the past year, to begin the discussion of the proposed tax abatement referendum that's coming up in November of 2010, and to solicit suggestions for economic development or continued economic developments from other people in the county. So if the Commission approves, I'd like to go ahead and set a date for it. And my suggestion is that we'd have it in the same location in Sebastian.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Solari, seconded by Commissioner Wheeler. And Commissioner Solari, I think you have talked to the city of Sebastian, and they're willing to host this again?
Yeah, I'd like to, that was sort of informally, but yes, they said the indication I got was that they would be very happy to, and they were very gracious when I discussed it with the city manager, but I'd like to confirm it by going through.
Right, okay. Well, how I see this is kind of you have nominated yourself to kind of chair this event and organize it. So we will empower you to do so, and you will come back to us once you have coordinated a date and everything with the city of Sebastian.
Yes, sir, thank
Okay.
Good job, Commissioner. That'll teach you.
Yeah.
I would like to add to that, Mr. Chair, if I
Yes,
could.
go ahead, Commissioner Davis.
In this forum, an evaluation we've had, I would say, I'm going to call it substantial success as far as the job grants and the individuals coming forward. I'd like some evaluation of the process in that hearing from, and if those individuals can't be there, I'd like to know, what we can do to improve upon the process that they've gone through to be able to capitalize on more opportunities.
And I think we can do that. I know Helene and Penny are here, and we have updated our job grant brochure. It's much more colorful, attractive. We changed a lot of wording, but certainly we can contact those individuals that have been granted the jobs grant program. And actually today at the Economic Development Council meeting, we're hearing a third application coming forward. So I think it seems like we didn't have any for a long time, and now we're getting a lot. I think it is working, but we would be glad to bring that information back to you and give you an update on that.
That sounds great. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to designate Commissioner Solari to chair the Economic Summit 2 and come back with the time and date. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. That takes us to Commissioner Solari, item 2, a recommended electric resolution. Commissioner Solari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last year, I believe the BCC passed a resolution to be sent to our legislative delegation regarding the City of Vero Beach electric utility system. Dr. Faherty has requested that I present to the board for its consideration this year a similar resolution. It would have come through the Utility Advisory Committee, but for the fact that they did not have a quorum at its last meeting. And as the legislative delegation meeting is December 4th, and they won't have another meeting, he asked me to present it to you. Attached is the resolution and also a letter explaining, from Dr. Faherty, explaining why he was unable to attend today's meeting. He's at the City of Vero Beach also discussing electric utilities. So with that, I would like to make a motion that we pass this resolution and present it to our delegation on December 4th.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Solari for the approval of the attached resolution, second by Commissioner Davis. Any discussion? Mr. Collins, do you have any legal issues here? Is this sufficient for what we need to do?
We can put it in a more standard format for you. I haven't read it to see if there's any legal implications, but
Why don't we go that route, Commissioner Solari? Why don't we give direction to the county attorney to review this, put it, yes.
Bring it back to us by December 1st,
Yes.
so we can present it.
It's
Okay.
substantially the same as last year's resolution, so I don't think there will be any substantive problems, and it's fine to have it in the right format. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion and comment from the public on this? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Carries unanimously.
Before we adjourn, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to point out that you run a much quicker meeting than Commissioner Davis.
Yes, absolutely. And a phenomenal job, and I tell you, you set the bar high to be able to get us out of here at 10 by 10:30.
Well, and again, Commissioner Davis, I just want to applaud you for the work you did. I think we should all give you another round of applause for you. With no further business to be conducted, I declare this meeting adjourned.